million euros for more air defenses and mine clearance equipment. And the US will provide more than $200 million worth of air defense, artillery and rocket ammunition. This afternoon, we welcomed Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov to a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council. Establishing the Council was one of the 3 historic decisions we took at the Vilnius Summit to bring Ukraine closer to NATO. We also brought Ukraine to within 1 step of the alliance by removing the requirement for a membership action plan. And we agreed a program to make Ukraine's armed forces fully interoperable with its future NATO allies. Today, in the NATO-Ukraine Council, we discussed Ukraine's priorities on its path to NATO membership, including long-term interoperability and defense procurement. A modernized defense and security sector will not only help Ukraine to prevail, it will also ensure the Ukrainians can sustain peace and stability. Allies commended Ukraine's continued fight against corruption, even in the midst of Russia's brutal war. We also made clear that NATO will step up support to help Ukraine weather another difficult winter. This includes providing more cold weather clothing, demining capabilities, fuel and medical equipment. This will help the brave Ukrainian forces to fight through the cold and continue to press forward. Tomorrow, NATO's defense ministers will meet to discuss strengthening our deterrence and defense, NATO missions and operations, the damage to critical undersea infrastructure in the Baltic Sea, and the situation in the Middle East. With that, I'm ready to take your questions.
Thanks. We'll start with Reuters here, please.
Secretary General Andrew Gray from Reuters. We've heard assurances in recent days that neither the infighting in the US Congress nor the war or the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians will affect support for Ukraine. On what basis can you give those assurances, especially given in the case of Israel, they're asking for air defense and ammunition, which is also what Ukraine is asking for?
So first of all, what we're seeing today is that actions speaks louder than words, meaning that not only do we tell clearly that NATO allies are ready to stand by Ukraine, but actually allies are delivering more support to Ukraine. More air defense, F-16s, ammunition, more training, and packages of different types of support. So I think the meeting today, the NATO ministerial meeting and also the meeting of the NATO Defense Contact Group demonstrates that NATO allies are there to provide support to Ukraine. And not only in words, but also in deeds. And that's a strong message to Russia and to anyone that believes that Russia can wait out NATO allies. We are there to support Ukraine. And I'm confident that NATO allies will continue to do so, not least because it is in our security interest that Ukraine prevails. Their fight is our fight. Their security is our security. Their values are our values. So it's in our national security interests to ensure that we continue to support Ukraine and that Ukraine prevails. And that has been a message from all NATO allies since the start of the war, and we have demonstrated our support through unprecedented support to Ukraine. Then, of course, NATO and NATO allies, we have the capability, the strength to address different challenges at the same time. We don't have the luxury of choosing only one threat and one challenge. So NATO allies also have the capability to address the situation in the Middle East. And as you know, several NATO allies have provided support, intelligence, other types of support to Israel.
We'll go to Sky in third row in the middle, please. It's coming behind you.
Thank you. Adam Parsons from Sky News. Secretary General, can I ask you, how worried are you that the conflict in the Middle East can now spill over and create an even bigger war? What can you and the NATO members do to prepare for that here? And if I may ask specifically, Do you think that Israel, a trusted partner of NATO, has the right to launch a ground offensive into Gaza?
Israel has the right to defend itself, and they have suffered horrendous terrorist attack over the weekend with many civilians killed. And Israel has the right to defend itself against these types of terrorist attacks. Then I also expect that, of course, when we see Israeli responses, it will be proportionate, and it is important as this conflict continues to do whatever is possible to prevent the loss of innocent civilian lives. I think it's also an important message that any nation or organization hostile to Israel should not try to utilize the situation we now see. We also see that, for instance, the United States has increased its military presence in the region to also send a clear message of deterrence to prevent escalation of this conflict.
Go to Fox on the third row here, please.
Thanks a lot. Thomas Gutschka with Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. Secretary General, on the pipeline incident, I'm just wondering, could there be a role for NATO to investigate this or to support the investigation? Have you offered something to Finland and Estonia, or have they maybe asked for assistance from NATO? I'm asking this in view of the fact that NATO has now its own capability on critical infrastructure. Thank you.
Well, NATO has been concerned about our critical undersea infrastructure for a long time, for many years. And of course, NATO has capabilities. We have intelligence that is relevant to address and to minimize the risk and to protect our critical infrastructure. After the attacks, the explosions on the Nord Stream pipelines, we stepped up further. We have established a cell here at the NATO headquarters to coordinate efforts, and we are in the process of also establishing a center at our maritime command in Northwood to step up what we do on protecting critical undersea infrastructure. I spoke with the Finnish president yesterday, Sauli Niinistö, and also with the Prime Minister of Estonia, Kaja Kallas, yesterday. They updated me on the ongoing national investigations by Finland and Estonia. They shared, of course, what they find with NATO. I told them that we are ready to help them with their national investigations. And I also updated them on what NATO is doing in general to protect our critical infrastructure. We have to understand that these undersea critical infrastructure is vulnerable, because we speak about thousands of kilometers of pipelines, of cables, of internet grid, of power grid, which by nature is vulnerable. Therefore, it is important that we share information, that we share intelligence, and that we also share best practices in how to protect both between NATO allies, but also between the government and the private companies that are operating most of this critical infrastructure.
Thanks. We'll go to Politico, row 4, please.
Josh Pisana from Politico. Just a question in view of the recent result in the Slovak election and also the rhetoric that we've been hearing from Poland recently. Has the alliance been forming contingency planning in terms of delivery routes for armaments to Ukraine moving forward? Should there be any restrictions or problems?
First of all, Poland has been a strong supporter of Ukraine since the very beginning, and has expressed again and again that they continue to be ready to support Ukraine and also be a platform, a hub for other allies to deliver Ukraine, to deliver military support into Ukraine. On Slovakia, they just had an election. There will be a new government, but I'm absolutely confident that NATO allies will continue to provide support to Ukraine because it is in our security interest. And allies have demonstrated that in deeds through the meeting today. So, of course, it is for the new government in Bratislava to speak on behalf of Slovakia. It's not for me, but I'm confident that NATO allies will continue to provide support to Ukraine.
We'll have Swedish radio in second row, please. Just over here.
But, Secretary General, what kind of contacts, more concrete, does NATO have with Finland and Estonia regarding this pipeline issue, more concrete, and anything new regarding the Swedish membership?
Well, the contact is that we have contact on the highest political level. I spoke with the President and the Prime Minister yesterday. We have our military authorities working closely together, sharing information. Of course, Estonia and Finland are NATO allies. They are present here at the NATO headquarters with military experts who share information. And we have, of course, different platforms of also sharing classified information. That's exactly what we are doing. It's too early to determine exactly what caused the damage of these, the pipeline and the cable. There are ongoing investigations, and until they are finalized, I think it's a bit too early to tell. But if it is proven that this is a deliberate attack on allies' critical undersea infrastructure, this would be a very serious incident, and it will be met by a united and determined response from NATO. But it remains to determine what caused the damage, and therefore I think it's a bit too early to say exactly how NATO will respond. It depends on what the investigation will reveal. But we share information constantly at different levels, the technical level, the political level, with two NATO allies, Estonia and Finland. On Swedish membership, I'm in regular contact with the Turkish authorities. I met with President Erdogan recently in New York. I spoke with the Turkish foreign minister a few days ago. And my message is, of course, that we have an agreement in Vilnius where Turkey said clearly that they are ready to ratify, that the papers for ratification will be transmitted to the Grand National Assembly, and that the President will work with the Grand National Assembly, the Parliament, to ensure ratification. And it was stated clearly that that should happen as soon as possible, meaning that when the Assembly, the Parliament again convened, then this process should start to take place. Now the Parliament has just convened a few days ago, and therefore I expect this to happen.
Just one or two more. We'll go to Espresso TV Ukraine, row two.
Ukraine, Secretary General, I have two questions. The first one is last week Admiral Rob Bauer said that NATO's stockpiles are running low, and without replenishing them it might be quite difficult to send more weapons to Ukraine. And how critical can this be? And my second question is Russia has started to actively blackmailing the civilized world with nuclear weapons again, and Putin has even hinted that he might withdraw Russia from the nuclear test ban treaty. Is it just blackmailing again, or maybe he can use actually nuclear weapons if the war in Russian aggressive war in Ukraine fails? Is there any information from the intelligence agencies about this?
So first, on ammunition, this is an issue we have put very high on the NATO agenda for many months, because when last summer we saw that this was more and more now turning into a war of attrition, we realized that, of course, we were not able in the long run to only dig into our own stocks to provide support to Ukraine, because then our own stocks were going to run too low. So in the beginning we could move ammunition from stocks to Ukraine. Since last summer, since last fall, it has been obvious that we need also to engage with the industry ramp up production. And since then we have worked here at NATO with our existing structures, the different platforms we have to engage with the industry, but also based on NATO's capability targets, they have been revised upwards to ensure that allies are now producing more. Sometimes it takes time to ramp up production, but allies are now ramping up production. More and more contracts are signed. We have something we call framework contracts for 2.4 billion euros for ammunition, out of which 1 billion are firm contracts, and it was an issue also today. They need to ramp up production, and allies are increasing production, both to replenish our own stocks, but also to be able to continue to provide Ukraine with support. So this is extremely important. I welcome that allies are doing more, and I urge them to sign more and more contracts, but because there's this signing of contracts that can enable the industry to produce more and also to make investments in increased production capacity. So rest assured, and it was also an issue I discussed with President Zelensky when I visited Kiev, also to have joint efforts by NATO allies and Ukraine to produce more also inside Ukraine, to ramp up production also in Ukraine. Then Russia's nuclear rhetoric throughout this conflict has been and continues to be reckless and dangerous. Russia must know that nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. Of course, we continue to watch what Russia is doing very closely. So far, we haven't seen any changes in their nuclear posture that require any changes in our nuclear posture. But of course, Russia's announcement on revoking ratification of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty demonstrates Russia's lack of respect and the continued disregard for its international commitments, and this reckless endangers the global norms against nuclear explosive testing. NATO allies have upheld this norm against nuclear testing for over 25 years, and we have no plans to start testing again. Putin is trying to use nuclear blackmail to intimidate and coerce. He tries to use this nuclear rhetoric to prevent NATO allies from supporting Ukraine, but he will not succeed. Because again, it is in our security interest that Ukraine prevails. So we will continue to support Ukraine and will not allow President Putin to blackmail NATO allies through his nuclear rhetoric.
Last question to Romanian radio here in row 2.
Bogdanin Sopescu, Radio Romania. This is the first meeting after the drone incidents in Romania. The Romanians in the area are afraid for their lives. I'm not asking just for a message for them, but some details, extra details about measures, NATO measures in the area against, I don't know, drones or some.
Well, NATO has, since the beginning of this war, increased its presence in the Black Sea region, including in Romania. I remember actually before the full-scale invasion, I went to Romania, and we have started already then to increase our presence with NATO troops, with different capabilities. And of course, since the full-scale invasion, we further stepped up our presence with planes, with surveillance drones, but also with ground forces, and after the incident with the drone, or the debris from the drone near Danube, we further increased our air policing with more planes in the NATO air policing mission in Romania to help to detect, to help to monitor. So far, we have no proof that the drones that landed, or the debris, or the parts of the drones that have landed in Romania, are a result of an intentional attack on Romania. The indications and the information we have indicates that these are results of attacks that were targeted on Ukrainian targets, but then ended up in Romania, because they are targeting, as you know, infrastructure, grain infrastructure in the Danube region, very close to the border of Romania. But rest assured, we have capabilities, different types of capabilities, to closely monitor and also to help protect all NATO allies, including Romania. And we are constantly assessing the need to strengthen our presence, as we have already done in the Black Sea region, including in Romania, also after the drone incident.
That's all we have time for. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.